Jesus tells us a parable about the coexistence of good and evil in this world. God's judgment will remove all evildoers and causes of sin, but not until the end of human history. The Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus put before the crowds another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slaves said to him, "Then do you want us to go out and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest, and at harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." Then Jesus left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." Jesus answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, the field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. So Jesus has been telling parables to help his listeners understand the kingdom of heaven. Last week, we heard Jesus' parable of the sower of the seed, highlighting the extravagant love of Jesus, the sower. This week, Jesus expands on this parable and its simile to the kingdom of heaven in order that his listeners, that we, might better understand the causes of evil in our world, of weeds among us in God's garden. And it's important to remember that these stories Jesus shares are parables. They're not literal explanations, and they often carry many possible meanings. This week I was privileged to be part of a group from St. John which took part in an immersion experience at Pine Ridge through the Pine Ridge Reconciliation Center.
Yo hey hey yo hey 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 yo. Lena ke waste ke apelo ho ye yana je yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey yo yo hey 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 yo. Lena ke waste ke apelo ho ye yana je yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey yo.
Lakota teachings, like those of Jesus, are also filled with similes and metaphors meant to help us understand truths of existence, even if not fully. Looking at a large stone, a European Christian and a traditional Lakota person may describe that stone differently because they look at it from different sides. But it is the same stone. As part of today's message, we would like to share some of what we learned this week, new perspectives and insights into our sisters and brothers' lives of the Oglala Lakota people at Pine Ridge, the weeds which attempt to choke them from thriving, and the love which continues to grow. Out of cultural respect, as you saw in that slideshow, we didn't get a lot of photos. I invite our folks forward, however we're going to do this.
Yup.
I guess because I was sitting close enough, I'm going to go first. But one of the things that we just saw in the film was the first thing in Monday morning. We had a presentation on the re-education of men primarily in the tribe compared to the way they lived in the days before we were here. In the days before we were here, the men's responsibility was to be the hunters and the gatherers. The women's responsibility was to take care of the children, the home, the meals. When, in his words, and Milton's words, when the tribes were colonized, or in other words, put on reservations, one of the things that really changed was the men could no longer be the hunters or the gatherers. They could not have weapons. They couldn't do any of the things that they had done historically as part of the family of the tribe. But the women continued to be able to take care of the kids. They took care of the house. They took care of the children. So while that was in a different setting than they had been in before, they still had their traditional jobs. So it's taken a long time in re-educating men that they need to find a new place within the family. Some of what has resulted from that over the years has been alcohol, been abuse, but right now people like Milton are working on re-educating men in their role within the family and within the tribe. And it was just very admirable to listen to him. The second piece I'd like to just quickly share is Virgil. Virgil shared with us that tribal people are circular people. So I'm going to step away from the mic for a minute. So this is the teepee, and this is the door. You always entered from the left, and you went around, and you left from the right. That was how you entered and left the teepee. And that was just an example of that was the life of the tribe. They believe in the circles of the sun, and the seasons are important and meaningful in their lives. The circle of life is important and meaningful. And once again, when they were colonized or on the reservation, what was given to them were square houses and fences, yards with square fences. So again, it was a totally different thing than they were accustomed to. And both these gentlemen talked about how they're learning to live in that new society and how they want to be part of that new society. So that for me was very meaningful.
Well, I don't know how many of you have ever had a near-death experience, but if you're interested in one, get in the church van and have Parsley drive. One of the people we listen to is a man named Basil Braveheart. He's 93 years old, and I guess I'd describe him as sort of a philosopher. And he spoke about a lot of things, but the thing that stuck with me was his emphasis on oneness. And, in John 17, Jesus talks about his praying his disciples will be one as Jesus is one with God. In the same way, Basil called us to recognize our oneness with God, the Creator, and with all other peoples, and indeed with all the materials that are on earth. And he stressed then that we respect all other peoples, animals, plants, and all of creation. And part of the way to accomplish this, he offered this advice that every day as we rise, we invite Jesus to take charge of our lives. The second thing, two things I just want to talk about is almost everyone that spoke to us described the struggles of convincing the majority of those living on the Pine Ridge that living according to the Spirit, both their traditional spiritual ways and biblical ways, which are very close, that convincing people to do that is hard. And it reminded me of what we do here every Sunday in church, trying to convince people both inside and outside of the church that living according to the Spirit is better than living according to the world. And they do it basically the same way we do, personal example and one person at a time. It's a slow process in Pine Ridge and here in Madison too.
I took some notes when Basil was talking. He's a very deep man, very deep thinker. But some of the things that I learned from him or heard from him were, we are all connected. We are connected with each other, but we are also connected to the earth, the sky, the trees, the animals. And so we should make the most of that and take care of that. He said we have 22,000 breaths a day, this breath that the divine gave us because of his unconditional love. He said the divine God is infused in all of creation. This energy, this body that we live is just borrowed for now. Both Basil and Virgil talked about when they would explain something, if it seemed like they were criticizing, they would say, no, that's not a criticism. That's just the way it is. Basil talked about asking for forgiveness. And when we ask for forgiveness, he said, do you believe there is a God? He said, I do, because I know there is a God. He said, I don't believe in God. I honor that I know God. Basil was the one who got Harney Peak changed to Black Elk Peak. That tells you his status and power. He talked about forgiveness, and he said, even if you step on a flower, the scent is still there if you bend down and smell it. He said, it forgave you even though you stepped on it. He was at one time asked to accept an award, and he said, no, I can't. And they said, well, why don't you want to accept this award? And he said, because I didn't do it. The divine did it. He just spoke to me. Virgil would start us each morning with taking in prayers and walking in those prayers all day. He would light sage, and we would do a smudge where you would take it in and then carry that with you all day. And they both mentioned, that we are all connected. Prayer connects us. We are all praying to the same God.
Well, they've covered just about everything at this point. But, our first night there, we heard from a former prosecutor who is focused on finding justice for missing and indigenous women, missing and murdered. And she had posters of about 50 women who had disappeared over the last 50 years or were murdered, and their murders and disappearances were not taken seriously by authorities. And hopefully that is changing as more awareness comes, spreads. But yeah, that was depressing, a wonderful start to the week. But yeah, the speakers we had were good. One, the Reconciliation Center is headed up by a white guy, Pastor Dan, but he has Native staff so that he doesn't run afoul too much with the tribal council, because he could be kicked out at any time for any reason. There's another gentleman there, Abram, who has been there for like 11 years trying to get a homeless shelter built. And he, again, is a white guy, but he is working with assorted Native people on his staff. And so, yes, those two are definitely working towards reconciliation between the past and the present. And one thing that was emphasized by Virgil is that you can't change the past, but you can put down your anger and move on from where you are. And yeah, I'll leave a little bit for Emily.
I agree. I think they said most of it. I think one of my biggest takeaways from it was, in my field of work, I see a lot of the effects of the generational trauma. And so something that Virgil talked about and a lot of them talked about was taking off, kind of like Lynn said, like putting down that anger, taking off that generational trauma, and just wanting to forgive and move forward. So seeing the effects of that in my field of work, going there, I really didn't know what to expect, but everybody was so welcoming. And you could just tell that they really had just forgiven and moved forward. So that was really relieving to see. Even when we went up to Wounded Knee, in this place that has so much trauma and heartbreak, there were prayer ties, and these prayer ties represented white, black, Asian. So even in this place that has so much trauma and heartbreak, they're praying for everybody. So that was really reassuring to see that they truly do just want to move forward and forgive, and they're able to do that through their faith. So.
And if you'd like to ask any of us more about any specifics that were shared or that weren't shared, feel free to do that. It can be easy to see the weeds at Pine Ridge, the many challenges facing people there. And Jesus tells us that those weeds don't come up on their own, but are sown by the devil and those with evil intent. Far too many times, our nation, our ancestors, and those in authority have sown weeds, trying, even overtly, to choke the very life out of America's Native people. And we can see those results today, even as, with so many challenges, the Lakota people continue to live and grow, laugh and love. In the reading we heard this morning from Romans 8, Paul writes, all creation is eagerly waiting for God to show who his children are. And Jesus tells us time and time again, God's children are those who follow God's commands, to love one another just as we are loved. Together, we wait Jesus' return. We have a tendency to split our world into two, believer or non-believer, or sinner or saint. But life, as we know as Lutherans, is not that simple. We are both. There are times as we wait for Jesus' return that we are weeds, and times that we are wheat. We are in this world together, whether this world is our planet, our country, our state, community, or our congregation. Thanks be to God. Amen.